The Galactic Stalemate. In a galaxy far from our own, two mighty civilizations had long been locked in a bitter struggle for supremacy. The Zorgan Imperium, with its vast armies and ruthless tactics, sought to expand its dominion across the stars. Standing against them were the Alkurian Federation, a coalition of worlds united by their shared values of freedom and self-determination. For centuries, the conflict had raged on, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The advanced technologies of both powers had rendered all-out war an unthinkable prospect. The collateral damage would be too great for either side to bear. Instead, they engaged in a never-ending series of proxy wars, espionage missions, and diplomatic maneuvers, each trying to outmaneuver the other without risking mutual annihilation. Amidst this intergalactic stalemate, there existed a third power, humanity. Having achieved faster-than-light travel centuries ago, Earth had established itself as a technologically advanced but neutral party in the conflict. Human diplomats shuttled back and forth between Zorgan and Alkurian space, trying to broker peace deals and prevent escalation. Human scientists collaborated with both sides on research projects that promised to benefit all life. But as time wore on, tensions between the Imperium and Federation only continued to rise. Border skirmishes became more frequent and more violent. Espionage turned into sabotage. Diplomacy devolved into threats and recriminations. It seemed that despite humanity's best efforts, war was inevitable. In hidden bases on distant worlds, Zorgan warlords drew up plans for invasion and conquest. In secret chambers beneath Alkurian cities, Federation leaders debated desperate measures to protect their people. All the while, humanity watched from afar with growing concern. They knew that if war broke out, it would not remain contained. Sooner or later, Earth itself would be drawn into the fray. As the galaxy teetered on the brink of all-out war, humanity faced a stark choice. They could retreat to Earth and hope that isolation would protect them from the coming storm. They could choose a side and lend their considerable might to one power or the other, hoping it would be enough to tip the balance. Or they could do something else entirely, something that would shake the foundations of the galactic order and change everything forever. Unbeknownst to the Zorgans or Alkurians, a third option was already in motion. In secret shipyards hidden in the depths of the Kuiper Belt, Earth's greatest minds had been hard at work on a project unlike any other, a warship of unparalleled power, built for the singular purpose of ending the stalemate once and for all. But when the moment came to reveal humanity's trump card, would it usher in a new era of peace or something far darker? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain: the galaxy would never be the same again. The Selenian gambit. In the heart of the Selenian Empire, an ancient and proud civilization that had long remained neutral in the galactic conflict, a clandestine meeting was taking place. In a dimly lit chamber deep beneath the surface of Selenia Prime, a group of high-ranking officials had gathered to discuss a daring plan, one that could change the course of history. For centuries, the Selenians had watched from the sidelines as the Zorgans and Alkurians fought their endless war. They had hoped that by staying out of the fray, they could protect their people from the ravages of conflict. But as the fighting grew ever closer to their borders, they began to realize that neutrality was no longer an option. The leader of the Selenian delegation, a tall and imposing figure named Zoran Krell, stepped forward to address the group. "My friends," he began, his deep voice resonating through the chamber, "the time for action has come. We cannot sit idly by while the galaxy burns around us." He laid out his plan in detail. Using their advanced stealth technology, a team of Selenian operatives would infiltrate a key Zorgan military installation located on a remote moon. Once inside, they would steal a prototype superweapon known as the Hellfire Cannon, a device capable of destroying entire fleets of ships from across vast distances. With this weapon under their control, Krell explained, the Selenians would be able to force both sides to the negotiating table. They could use their newfound leverage to broker an end to hostilities that benefited everyone. Or failing that, use its destructive power themselves. But there was just one problem. Intel suggested that humanity had already discovered their plot through one of its many intelligence networks scattered across the galaxy. If they moved forward with it now, there was no telling how Earth might respond, especially given its own growing concerns about being drawn into open conflict. The room erupted into heated debate as various factions argued over what course of action they should take next. Some believed it was too risky given humanity's involvement, while others felt this might be their last best chance at securing peace through overwhelming force before all hell broke loose between Zorgans and Alcurians for good. Meanwhile, back on Earth, an emergency meeting of humanity's top leaders and military brass was already underway. They faced a terrible choice of their own: reveal what they knew of Selenia's plans and risk shattering its neutrality forever, or say nothing, let events unfold as they may, while continuing work in secret on their own wild card waiting in reserve just in case. In the end, it was decided, with great reluctance, that humanity could not simply stand by and allow such a dangerous weapon to fall into Selenian hands, no matter how pure their intentions might have been originally when hatching such an audacious gambit. Instead, Earth would have to intervene directly if necessary in order to contain this new potential threat alongside old ones still brewing between the galaxy's two superpowers already on edge. And so orders went out through secure channels to elite human strike teams pre-positioned throughout known space. Prepare for immediate deployment against Selenian targets until prototypes successfully removed from play or neutralized entirely by whatever means available, including unveiling mankind's greatest secret achievement yet if need be, which could very well stop this new war before it ever truly began in earnest, depending on how both friends and foes alike reacted upon beholding its breathtaking power firsthand soon enough either way. The arrival of the ESS Infinity. In the depths of space, a battle rage. Zorgan and Alcurian fleets clashed in a cacophony of laser fire and missile detonations, their ships dancing a deadly ballet among the stars. On the surface of the moon below, Selenian operatives moved swiftly through the corridors of the Zorgan installation, their stealth suits rendering them all but invisible to the base's security systems. As they approached the chamber housing the Hellfire cannon, a sense of unease began to spread through their ranks. Something was wrong. The resistance they had encountered thus far had been far too light, almost as if the Zorgans were expecting them. Suddenly, alarms began to blare throughout the facility as hidden defense turrets emerged from the walls and opened fire on the intruders. In space, however, something far more alarming was happening. As Zorgan and Alcurian ships exchanged fire, scanners on both sides suddenly lit up with an all-too-familiar energy signature. Before the eyes of countless thousands across dozens of star systems, humanity's greatest secret weapon finally unveiled itself: the ESS Infinity. The behemoth dwarfed even the largest vessels present, so enormous that upon first glance, many mistook it for a small moon or asteroid somehow appearing out of nowhere at the heart of the battlefield. But soon its true nature became clear as it surged forward, leading an entire armada comprised of what looked like every human warship ever built until now gathered together in one place at last. Stunned silence fell across open comms as Zorgan admirals found themselves unable to issue orders fast enough before being cut off by precision strikes from highly advanced weaponry never seen before, while Alcurian commanders gaped at readings showing energy outputs several orders of magnitude beyond anything thought to be possible using known technologies to date. Even the Selenians, now under heavy fire, were suddenly forgotten by their erstwhile enemies, replaced by this incomprehensible new threat dominating every sensor feed and holo display from one end of contested space to another without exception. The sheer level of shock and awe displayed left no room for any other considerations whatsoever, only a slowly dawning realization that everything had changed irrevocably in that instant, whether those involved wished it or not. As time unfroze again amid resuming explosions and frantic maneuvering, one thing remained clear above all else. For better or worse, Earth's greatest secret was finally out, and whatever came next belonged solely to mankind's discretion moving forward, given what everyone present just witnessed firsthand, leaving zero doubt about whose will shall be done whenever humanity decided to finally weigh in with its full might unleashed at long last. On board the Infinity's bridge, the atmosphere was tense but focused. The ship's commander, a battle-hardened veteran named Admiral Elena Stark, watched the unfolding chaos with a steely gaze. She had known this day would come eventually, had trained for it, planned for it, even dreamed of it in the quiet moments between the stars. But now that it was here, she felt a strange sense of calm washing over her. They had done the impossible, she knew, had built a ship that could single-handedly end wars before they ever began. And though part of her recoiled at the sheer destructive potential now at her fingertips, another part recognized the necessity of it. For too long, humanity had stood on the sidelines while the galaxy burned around them. No more. Open a channel to all ships, she ordered, her voice steady and clear. As communications links crackled to life across thousands of light years, Stark addressed those whose lives she now held in her hands. We are humanity. For centuries we have watched you fight your petty wars over scraps of territory and pointless ideology, while we bided our time, perfecting our craft in secret, so that one day we might forge a lasting peace built upon mutual understanding between all races rather than endless cycles of violence, begetting more violence still yet again, as has been witnessed so often before. But know this, though we come bearing an olive branch in one hand, we also carry a sword forged from starfire itself in the other. One way or another change will occur. Let us work together towards brighter tomorrow, lest darker alternatives become the only path forward remaining open to us all in the end regardless. As Stark finished speaking, silence fell once more across the battlefield, save for a few hushed transmissions echoing back and forth, discussing what came next. Whatever else may come to pass, though, there could be no denying that as of this moment nothing in known space would ever be quite the same again, now that humanity had finally made its presence felt at long last. The price of peace. In the days that followed the ESS Infinity's dramatic arrival, an uneasy calm settled over the galaxy. The Zorgans and Alcurians, still reeling from the shock of humanity's intervention, had grudgingly agreed to a temporary ceasefire. But even as the guns fell silent, a new kind of warfare was already beginning. One fought not with weapons, but with words and promises and carefully crafted compromises. At the center of it all were the human diplomats, led by a shrewd negotiator named Marcus Vance. Shuttling back and forth between Zorgan and Alcurian space, Vance and his team worked tirelessly to bridge the gap between the two sides, to find common ground where none seemed to exist. It was a daunting task. The Zorgans, proud and militaristic, were loath to concede any ground to their ancient enemies. The Alcurians, fiercely independent, bristled at the thought of outside interference in their affairs, and both sides harbored deep suspicions about humanity's true motives, fears that Earth sought to impose its own will upon the galaxy under the guise of peacekeeping. But Vance was nothing if not persistent. In meeting after meeting, he hammered home the same message, that continued conflict would only lead to ruin for all involved. That true peace could only be achieved through dialogue and mutual understanding, and that humanity stood ready to serve as an impartial arbiter, a neutral third party with the power to enforce any agreement reached. Slowly, painfully, progress began to be made. Minor concessions at first, a prisoner exchange here, a border adjustment there. But as trust began to build between the warring factions, larger breakthroughs followed. A demilitarized zone along the Zorgan-Alcurian border, joint patrols to combat piracy and smuggling, even tentative plans for economic cooperation and cultural exchange. Through it all, however, one question loomed large in everyone's minds. What would be the price of this newfound peace? For as much as both sides desired an end to hostilities, neither was willing to sacrifice their core interests or values in pursuit of it, and so the negotiations dragged on. A delicate dance of give and take, of compromise balanced against principle. As weeks turned into months, tensions began to rise once again. Hardliners on both sides accused their leaders of weakness, of betraying their people for the sake of an illusory peace. Protests erupted on Zorgan and Alcurian worlds alike, as populations grown weary of war now found themselves facing an uncertain future instead. Through it all, humanity watched and waited, the ESS Infinity looming silently in the background like a great sword of Damocles hanging over the proceedings. Though Earth had no desire to play the role of galactic policeman, Vance and his team made it clear that they would not hesitate to use force if necessary to prevent a return to all-out war. In the end, it was this unspoken threat that finally brought the Zorgans and Alcurians to heel. Faced with a choice between an imperfect peace and total annihilation, even the most stubborn of leaders found themselves bowing to necessity. And so, with heavy hearts and no small amount of trepidation, they put their names to an accord that would reshape galactic politics for generations to come. The details of the agreement were complex, a web of interlocking treaties and protocols designed to balance competing interests while preserving each side's autonomy as much as possible. But at its core lay two simple truths: that never again would Zorgan and Alcur take up arms against one another, and that from this day forward it would be Earth who held ultimate authority over the fate of both. As news of the deal spread across colonized space, reactions were mixed but predictable. Those who had long dreamed of lasting peace rejoiced at seeing their hopes made manifest, while those who preferred strength rejoiced now at seeing what humanity's version looked like firsthand instead. Only one thing truly united when looking back, namely a growing realization that, ready or not, a new chapter had begun where anyone's guess what would come next, for better or worse alike, depending on one's point of view. A new galactic order. In the aftermath of the Zorgan-Alcurian peace accord, a new reality began to take shape across the galaxy. The old certainties of the past, the endless cycle of war and retribution, the constant struggle for dominance, had been swept away in a matter of months. In their place stood something new and unfamiliar, a fragile equilibrium, enforced by the watchful eye and steady hand of Earth. For the first time in centuries, the borders between Zorgan and Alcurian space were quiet. The great war fleets that had once clashed in the void now patrolled their own territories, their crews slowly adjusting to the strange sensation of peace. On worlds that had known nothing but conflict for generations, rebuilding began, a slow and painful process, but one filled with cautious hope for the future. But even as the scars of war began to fade, new challenges emerged to test the strength of this fledgling peace. Some were external, rogue factions within both the Zorgan and Alcurian governments who refused to lay down their arms, pirates and warlords who sought to exploit the chaos for their own gain. Others were internal. Economic upheaval as industries geared towards war struggled to adapt, social unrest as populations chafed under the yoke of an uncertain tomorrow. Through it all, humanity stood firm in its role as mediator and peacekeeper. The ESS Infinity remained a constant presence in the skies above key worlds, a reminder of Earth's power and resolve. Human diplomats worked tirelessly behind the scenes to diffuse tensions and broker compromises, while human corporations began to establish footholds in markets once closed to outsiders. But not everyone welcomed humanity's newfound influence. Some saw it as a violation of their sovereignty, an unwelcome intrusion into affairs that were not Earth's to control. Others feared what might happen if humanity's own internal divisions ever spilled out into the wider galaxy. If the same nation that had brought peace might one day bring something far worse. As the months turned into years, these tensions only grew. Whispers began to circulate of secret Zorgan and Alcurian weapons programs, hidden away in the depths of uncharted space. Rumors spread of covert human operatives working to destabilize rival governments from within. And all the while, new powers began to rise from the ashes of the old order. Upstart races and civilizations who saw in humanity's ascendance an opportunity to challenge the status quo. For those who had worked so hard to forge this new era of peace, such developments were deeply troubling. They knew all too well how fragile their accomplishments truly were, how easily they could be undone by fear, greed, or simple miscalculation. And yet they also knew that there could be no turning back from the path they had chosen, that having taken on the mantle of galactic leadership, humanity must now bear its burdens as best they could. And so they pressed on, the diplomats and soldiers, the scientists and spies, each playing their part in an unfolding drama whose final act was yet to be written. Some did so with a sense of grim determination, others with a quiet hope that their efforts might make a difference. But all were driven by the same underlying conviction, that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as one people, united by a common purpose. For in the end, this was the true legacy of humanity's great gamble, not just the reshaping of galactic politics or the birth of new alliances, but something far more profound. A fundamental shift in how all races and species saw themselves and each other, no longer as rivals locked in endless conflict, but as partners building towards a shared vision, greater than anyone alone. It was a lofty ideal, one long considered an impossible dream amid aeons soaked red by battles long past across countless systems near and far alike, without exception before now. Today, though, there can be no denying it reigns ascendant regardless whatever pitfalls tomorrow may bring next, when looking back upon this pivotal moment years hence forevermore. Thus begins another chapter, unforeseen yet unsurprisingly inevitable nonetheless, for such is nature inherent true seen throughout cosmos, wherever sentient eyes care peer forth witness boundless potential just waiting to be released at last. 2008 words. Here marks the end of our 5-part science fiction story, titled, "The Moment Humanity's Warship Appeared, All Hope Vanished." I hope you enjoy this original tale showcasing themes of human ingenuity, resilience, and determination against the backdrop of an intergalactic conflict. Let me know if you have any other questions